Good Sunday afternoon, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Southern Oregon Weather Weekend Update. We'll start as usual by talking about our current conditions, and then we'll discuss our next weather system, because over the next 2 or 3 days, we could see some pretty significant rain and snow amounts, especially for the Central Oregon Cascades. So I want to discuss that storm system with you. Then we'll talk about our mid-range forecast and conclude by discussing the latest trends for April as a whole. So first, the K-Max on top of Mount Ashland is showing showers lingering over the Siskiyous and the Southern Oregon Cascades. Those showers over the last few days dropped a couple inches of snow at our SNOTEL sites, Annie Springs near Crater Lake and Big Red Mountain in the Siskiyous. That snow settled quite a bit, so there hasn't been too much of a change in snow depth, but a couple of inches of snow certainly did fall over the last few days. Here our GOES satellite imagery from NOAA is showing clearing in the Rogue, Illinois, and Shasta valleys and over the east side of the Cascades, but clouds are still lingering over the western foothills here and over the Siskiyous. So the Weather Channel over the next few days is depicting our next system arriving on Monday and then continuing into Tuesday and Tuesday night. Once again, I include the Weather Channel because it's significantly more accurate than actually the National Weather Service digital forecast, and this is because the Weather Channel uses that proprietary algorithm that blends together the best performing models and combines those to give you the most accurate forecast and picture of what's going to happen. Here's the Canadian model agreeing with the Weather Channel forecast that our weather moves in on early Monday morning and showers continue until early on Wednesday. And this system looks pretty robust for the end of March. Here the WRF is calling for almost 2.5 feet of snow over the Cascade crest, lesser amounts for the Siskiyous, and the Canadian model is showing that as well. So usually the WRF, we've talked about how it tends to overdo things, but in this case it has the support from the Canadian model and some of the other models as well. The WPC also is calling for up to 3 inches of liquid precipitation over the Cascades over the next couple of days. Once again, the WPC is a pretty accurate source when it comes to rain and snow amounts. And if we assume about a 10-to-1 snow to water ratio here, these red areas, these brighter red areas, those indicate up to 2.5, maybe even 3 feet of snow over the higher Cascades. Once again, lesser amounts for the Siskiyous. One of the reasons for that is that the flow is expected to be pretty zonal, so west to east. The jet stream is forecasted to be directly overhead on Tuesday, and the Cascades are in a much better position to catch this moisture, if you will, in a zonal flow pattern because they're oriented north to south. So it's like a fire hose of moisture just running into a wall and piling up here. The Siskiyous, on the other hand, are oriented west to east, and so they don't catch as much of that moisture. Again, a pretty basic analogy, but the orientation of this jet is going to enhance snowfall over the Cascades a lot more than over the Siskiyous. Regardless, I think a lot of areas could see pretty healthy snow amounts for the end of March, and especially the Central Oregon Cascades extending down to about Crater Lake, maybe even as far south as Mount McLaughlin. Further south than that, still expecting several inches of snow, but not 2 feet of snow like we could maybe see farther north. On the heels of that system, some models are suggesting that some more showers move in for Friday into Saturday. Here's the GFS, the Canadian, and the ICON model, which is a German model, all showing some kind of system moving in on Friday. GFS is quite a bit wetter than the others, but the agreement here is a good indication that we could see some more showers for the weekend. So we have our main weather event for Tuesday and Wednesday, maybe some drying on Wednesday and Thursday, and then maybe some more showers for Friday and Saturday. So beyond that time frame, the models are struggling quite a bit with the pattern. And I think they're starting to come into better agreement, but here are the last 4 runs of the GEFS ensemble. The ensemble usually doesn't swing as wildly as the deterministic models from run to run, but here even the ensemble was struggling. Last 4 runs, this is from Saturday afternoon, the upper left-hand corner. The ensemble was showing a trough along the west coast, but then flipped the very next model run to a ridge along the west coast. And since then, it's kind of found a compromise between the two, with the ridge farther north and some form of troughing digging into California and southern Oregon underneath. So if we look at our AAM, the correlation for the atmospheric angular momentum, which is basically a measure of the jet stream around the world, that's showing a pretty similar pattern. See that ridge to the north? That's pretty similar to what the ensemble is showing for the day 10 period. And then we have some kind of troughing trying to cut underneath. So that's a good indication that we could be heading toward that type of a pattern. Maybe this ridge could produce a few days of warmer and drier conditions next week, but then as this trough nudges closer to the west coast, we could see a return to cooler and wetter conditions. In fact, the Japanese model is calling for this to happen as well. Here's days 10 to 16. You have this ridge. I'd expect this to maybe be a little bit farther north, and then this trough trying to cut underneath. The MJO as well is suggesting that this could happen. Here's the European model forecast. You see it's supposed to go into phases 1, 2, and 3. Phase 1 here is a warmer look for especially the Pacific Northwest into Washington, but then phase 2 and 3 are cooler, especially for California and Southwest Oregon. So a pretty good indication that that's the type of evolution in the pattern we're going to see. Overall, the long-range climate models are still calling for April to be cooler and wetter than average. And I think this ridge here could build for a few days next week, and then according to the CFSV2, it shifts north toward Alaska, and this trough migrates closer to the west coast, leading to cooler and wetter conditions in April. So to recap, first we have pretty significant amounts of valley rain and mountain snow over the next few days. Maybe not so much rain in the Rogue Valley. I'd expect there to be quite a bit of rain shadowing with those upper level winds. But some areas from Crater Lake north could see up to 2.5 feet of snow in the mountains. I'd expect maybe up to 6 inches in the Siskiyous, but we'll have to see how that plays out. We could have a couple dry days, maybe Wednesday and Thursday, and then another weekend system could bring additional showers. We have continuing signals for that brief warmer and drier window sometime next week, but the MJO is trending toward those cooler and wetter phases, and our long-range models are still showing a wetter and cooler April on average. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Don't forget to set your notifications so you don't miss that midweek update in a few days, and please leave a comment. I would love to hear from you. Let me know what you want to hear in the forecast.